So, picking up right where we left off, we're on this question. It says, write the equation in point slope form that passes through the point 47 and has a slope of 3. So first, you need to remember what point slope form is, which is right here on the board. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. I'm going to cut that out so I could keep it right here on this page. So that's what we want it to look like. So the way to use it is to rewrite it with blank spots. Y minus blank spot equals m parenthesis x minus blank spot. Okay. Now let's identify the m value. The m value is your slope, which is 3. Okay, they tell you the slope is 3. So the 3 goes right there in front of the parenthesis. And your coordinate, your x1, y1 value, x1 is inside the parenthesis, y1 is over here on the left side. So this is really your x1 value and your y1 value. So the 7 goes over here, and the 4 goes right there. It's that simple. We are done. Super easy. It's like free points on the final. Sometimes you might have like a -7 and you have to change it to a plus, make it a plus sign. But right here, it all just works out, right? Y minus 7, it's not a -7. X minus 4, it's not a -4. So we're done. Let's move on. So obviously you're not going to be graphing on the final, but you're going to have an equation and you have to identify the correct graph. So it's really simple when you have these graphs. You start with the b value. Once again, you need to know y equals mx plus b. So you start with the b value, which is -3. That tells you your y-intercept. So it crosses on the y-axis at -1, -2, -3 right here. So we're going to put a dot at -3. Now from that dot, I am going to either rise or drop and then run, depending on my slope. So this is a negative slope, so I'm going to be going down 2 over 3. Again, because it's negative, I'm going to go down 2 over 3. And you always run to the right. So from this red dot, I'm going to go down 1, 2, and over 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put a dot right here. Okay? Wow, that's ugly. But anyway, this is your line. That's the most disgusting thing ever. But you'll see it graphed for you on the multiple choice. Should be easy to identify. Let's move on. We want to graph this one. Now this one is slightly tricky because on the final exam, the units go by 2. So let's understand how to do this. Let's not get confused. It's really simple. We want to graph 5x minus 3y equals 21. I suggest rewriting it in slope-intercept form, getting y by itself. So what's my first step to get y by itself on the left side of that equal sign? Subtract 5x. That's the perfect thing to do. And we do to one side, do to the other side, subtract 5x. Don't freak out. You cannot do 21 take away 5x. That's like saying I have $21, I want to take away 5 bananas. You just can't do it. They're not like terms. So you're going to rewrite it. So what do we have left on the left side of the equal sign? We have -3y. Let's write that out. -3y equals, let's just rewrite 21 take away 5x. But instead of 21 take away 5x, let's write the x term first, the -5x first, and the 21 second. So I'm going to put -5x first and then plus 21 second. And now all I need to do is get rid of the multiplication of -3 in front of the y to get in y equals mx plus b. So divide by -3, divide by -3, divide by -3. So what we have here is y equals a negative divided by negative is a positive. Positive 5/3, you can't really divide 5 by 3. And then a 21 divided by a -3 is a -7. So here's our slope-intercept form equation. Now we must graph it. So how do I start graphing this thing? It crosses the y-axis where? -7. So I go to -7, which is between the -6 and the -8. So I'm going to put a dot right there. That's really the -7. And then from that dot, I'm going to go up 5 over 3. Now keep in mind that you're not going to be using the big spaces. You're going half spaces, right? Because that's how it really is. There's really a -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, and -7. That's how we're at the -7. So if I want to go up 5, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to take me to the -2, right? And then over 3, 1, 2, 3. Obviously 3 is going to be right here between the 2 and the 4. So let's put a dot right there. And if you just connect those two dots, you'll be able to identify which one is the correct multiple choice answer. Let's move on. All right, what are the equations of the following lines? Again, we've been going over this a lot. It's super easy. I hope we remember that a horizontal line is going to be what? X equals a number or Y equals a number?
X.
Okay, what's the only thing that you could tell me about this red line? Does it cross the x-axis? No. Does it cross the y-axis? Yeah, where does it cross the y-axis? 3. And that's your equation, guys. Y equals 3. Y equals 3 will produce a horizontal line. Now, does this one touch the y-axis? No. So, what could you tell me about this blue line? It crosses where, what? It crosses the x at -2. And guess what? That's your equation. Okay? So when you have y equals a number, it'll give you a horizontal line crossing the y-axis at that number. When you have x equals a number, it'll produce a vertical line crossing the x-axis at that value. In this case, -2. Are we cool with that? I hope so. Let's move on. More graphing. We have inequalities here. So this crosses where? The y-axis. The b value is 1, which means it crosses at 1. Put a dot right there at 1. And my slope is down 3 over 4. So from this dot, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to put a dot right there. And if it were an equation, if it were an equal sign, I would draw my line and I'm done. But it's not an equal sign, it's an inequality. And on inequalities, we're talking about areas, right? Now, first of all, do I draw a solid line or a dotted line? Dotted. Okay, so I'm going to do a dotted line through these 2 points. Now, how do I know it's dotted? Well, if I had a solid line underneath, like if I had a solid line underneath that inequality, then this would be a solid line. But it's not. It doesn't have a solid line underneath it, so that's why it's not a solid line. Now, second part, do I have the answers? Do I need a shade above or below this line? What do you guys say? Above or below? Below. Now, why is that? If y is by itself, you're saying y is less than. Okay, here's the y-axis. Is it less than going up or is it less than going down? Going down. So that's why that less than means for you to shade below. So we shade everything that's below that red dotted line. Okay, and you'll be able to identify that on the final. Is this line perpendicular to y equals 3x minus 11? No, I read that wrong. A line is perpendicular to y equals 3x minus 11. What is the slope of this line? Okay, so what is the slope of the line that's perpendicular to y equals 3x minus 11? Anybody? Well, once again, on the wall right there, it says perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So whatever slope you see on that other equation, you got to change the sign and flip the fraction. Okay, change the sign and flip the fraction. So the equation was y equals negative 3x minus 11. Or 3x minus 11. I'm sorry, it was positive 3x minus 11. Okay, so y equals positive 3x minus 11. That was the equation. I needed the perpendicular slope. So what's my perpendicular slope going to be? M equals what? Negative 1/3, negative 1 over 3. Again, you have to change it and flip it. So if you do change the sign and flip it, it's going to become a negative 1 over 3. That's your answer for this question. Another multi-step inequality that we need to solve. Step 1 is to simplify each side, do distributive property and or combining like terms. On the right side, there's nothing to do. You can't add 4x and 21. That's like saying I have 4 oranges, I want to add 21 cookies. You can't do that. They're not like terms. But on the left side, you could do distributive property. So let's start with that. 7 times x is 7x. 7 times 6 is positive 42. Use a calculator if you need to. Bring down that inequality, rewrite the rest, 4x plus 21. Now I have a simplified inequality. I want to get x by itself on one side. I have x's on both sides of my inequality. So I'm going to move this 4x over here. I need to get rid of that 4x. So I get rid of that 4x by subtracting 4x. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. Subtract 4x. 7x take away 4x is 3x. Bring down the plus 42. Bring down the greater than symbol. Bring down the 21. All we need to do is 2 more steps. What do I get rid of first, the 3 or the 42?
42.
The 42. Subtract 42. Subtract 42. We end up with 3x is greater than, remember, the only time it flips is when you multiply or divide by a negative. Right here, I'm not multiplying and dividing, I'm subtracting 42. So my answer is negative 21. Again, you could do this with the calculator. 21 take away 42, you give you negative 21. So my final step is to recognize that there's 3 times x, and the way to get rid of that multiplication of 3 in front of the x is to divide by 3 and divide by 3. Giving you your final answer, x is, do I keep that symbol or do I flip that symbol? Keep it. I did not divide by negative 3. I divided by positive 3. Even though my answer is negative, I don't flip that symbol. A negative 21 divided by a positive 3 is negative 7. I did not multiply or divide by a negative on my last step. That's why I did not flip that inequality symbol. Oh yeah, it's getting more fun. Write an equation in point-slope form given 2 points, and then they want you to use 0.25. Okay, so if they give you 2 points, they're really giving you an x value and a y value, an x value and a y value. So if I tell you, hey, look at x, you don't know if I'm talking about the negative 4 or the positive 2 until I say, hey, look at x from the second point. That would be labeling it x2 and y2, y from the second point. This is x1, y1, x from your first point, y from your first point. And knowing those 2 points, you can now use the slope formula that I hope we have memorized. It's on the board. You have m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And whenever you use the formula, I recommend starting with the division and the subtractions in blue, and then plugging in your red values of y2 being 5, y1 being negative 7, x2 being 2, and x1 being negative 4. And then simplifying, right? Plus, 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 plus. We will end up with 12 over 6, giving us 2 as our final slope. Now, our slope is 2, but we need to write an equation in point-slope form. Point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. I recommend rewriting it with blank spots and then plugging in your y1 and x1 value, but they want you to use this point as y1 and x1. So put the 5 right there, put the 2 over here, and put the slope that you just got right there, and that will be your answer to the equation that's in point-slope form that passes through those 2 points. I hope this helps. Let's continue on. It says to convert to slope-intercept form. So we first need to know what slope-intercept form is. It's y equals mx plus b. And this is up on the wall if you need it. And we should know that the b is the y-intercept, the m is the slope, the rise over run. So obviously this is in point-slope form. It does not look like this. First of all, the y is not by itself, and even before that, we have parentheses. Now we know that on y equals mx plus b in slope-intercept form, there are no parentheses. So what do we do to get rid of those parentheses?
You distribute the negative 3.
That's right. Distribute the negative 3 times x, I'll give you a negative 3x. Negative 3 times 6, I'll give you a negative 18. And then you bring down the equal sign, bring down the y, bring down the minus 4. You just bring everything down. So now we could worry about getting y by itself. In other words, get rid of this minus 4 by doing the opposite of minus 4, which is a plus 4. And what you do to one side, you do to the other side. You can't add 4 to the x, so let's add 4 to the minus 18. So this does eliminate. You have y equals negative 3x minus 14. And this is your y equals mx plus b equation. That is the answer to this problem. What is the rate of change of the table below? Well, first of all, what is rate of change? That's the question.
You can guess it.
Rate of change,
I think I can guess it.
what do you think that is?
It's how much the thing, like, say it's like how much it jumps to when the other number.
Okay.
If 1 is like 3, 2 is like 6.
How it changes?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And graphically, how does it change from one point to the next according to your rise over run, huh? So in reality, the rate of change is really the slope value, okay? So you're thinking, well, I don't see an equation. I don't have y equals mx plus b. I can't see the m. True, we can't see the m, but we do see an xy table, which is an input-output table. These are coordinates, which means that you have to use the slope formula. Perfect. So you could pick any 2 points you want. I'm just going to go with the first one and the second one, okay? So if you want to make it less confusing, go ahead and write it over again. 4, 8 and 5, 11, okay? And we said that 4, 8, let's just call that our first point, x1, y1. Let's call the second point, 5, 11, our x2, y2. Now keep in mind, you could pick any 2 points you want.
Are you doing slope formula, Mr.
Yes, we are using the slope formula, which is m equals division, subtraction. Everything's backwards. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And when you do use this formula, I recommend that you guys start with the division and the subtractions and then fill in your red x1, y1, and those values, right? So y2 is 11, y1 is 8, x2 is 5, x1 is 4, okay? And again, it doesn't matter if you use these 2 points or maybe these last 2 points. Obviously, the smaller numbers are easier to work with, so that's why I picked these 2 points. But anyway, 11 take away 8, that is a 3, correct? So up on top, we have 3, and on the bottom, we have 5 take away 4 is 1. So what is our rate of change? M equals 3. 3 is the rate of change. And that makes total sense because 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it's changing by 3, the outputs, right?
Can you also just like get the high, like the 20 and start subtracting, get the pseudo number?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, what I would like you to do is to understand that these are coordinates and to use a slope formula, right?
Yeah.
But I guess the shortcut way, if these guys are in consecutive integer order, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If they're skipping around and they're out of order, you can't do it. But if they are in order like this, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then
Put it
you,
in order?
it'll be in order. But I mean, just so you know, if it's not in order, you can't just say, oh, how do I get from 8 to 11? Oh, from 8 to 11, I add 3 to it. I add 3 to that to get to 14. I add 3 to that to get to 17. So how's it changing? It's changing by positive 3, right? You can't really do that if the inputs are not in consecutive integer order. If you're skipping around or if they're out of order, you can't see the pattern on the outputs. And I mean, the real way that you're getting tested here is to apply the slope formula. On this question, it's the same deal, the same words, rate of change. What is rate of change? M. That's just the slope. So if you look at the line, what do you guys say the slope is from one red dot to the next one?
3.
As a fraction.
Oh, 3 over 1.
I go up 1, 2, 3 over 1, like that? No, up 1 over 1, 2, 3. Up 1 over 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's right. So up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3. So the slope, the rate of change is 1 over 3. That's what you select as your multiple choice answer. So here's a good one. What's the slope of the line passing through those points? And once again, everybody should know that to find the slope, we use what?
When m equals y1.
Slope formula. Yeah. Division, subtraction. You have your y2, y1, x2, x1. And when you use it, please do the division and the subtractions first. And then plug in your x value and your y value, your x value and your y value. The only thing is, if I tell you, look at x, you don't know if I'm talking about the first 9 or the second 9. That's why we label the first x, x1, and the second x, x2. Or if I tell you, look at y's, you don't know if I'm talking about the first y or the second y. That's why we label them y1 and y2. So let's plug in our values. Negative 3, no, I'm sorry, negative 15, no, positive 15. Wow, what's the matter with me? y2 is positive 15, y1 is negative 3, x2 is 9, x1 is 9. So what happens here? Plus, and that's 18 because 5 plus 3 is 18. Over 9 take away 9 is 0. When 0 is underneath, what is our slope?
M equals 18.
Undefined. Undefined. Okay? When 0 is underneath, it's undefined. Undi.
Oh, 6 is...
Okay, now if 0 is on top, then the answer is 0. Right? If I had 0 divided by 18, yeah, nothing divided by 18 is still nothing. 0 on top, the answer is 0. 0 is underneath, the answer is undefined. How could you remember this? Use a calculator. If you go 18 divided by 0, it's going to say error. You just can't do it. It's undefined. What does that mean? That your line is so steep you can't define it. It's perfectly vertical. Anyway, moving on. This is the easiest question on the final exam. Just ridiculous. Write an equation in slope-intercept form that has a slope 3/4. First, let's start with y equals mx plus b. That is your slope-intercept form. That's the equation they want you to write. They want it to look like this. And what is my slope? 3/4. What is my y-intercept? 5. So put the 5 right there, put the 3/4 right there, and you're good to go. So we have a 5 right here and a 3/4 right there, and we're done. What?
Easiest question there.
No math to do. You just put them in and you're done.